What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, key levels to watch for, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data, there's a lot of big things coming out this week that could really hype up the broader market. So I'm sure you're well aware of it right now, but the market is closed today, so it is a shorter week. But first thing kicking off tomorrow, we have ADP weekly. Previous was 6,500, and the last couple reports haven't really been the greatest. It's been largely trending down, so the market will be kind of looking at that. In addition, on Tuesday, the market will be digesting kind of what has happened over the weekend, and the only thing to really bring up is kind of geopolitical issues with Iran. So the market generally doesn't like that, so Tuesday might be a little bit of a volatile time. Plus, if we ever kind of look at what happens with cryptocurrency over the weekend, that usually does give some insight to people's appetite for risk. And right now, cryptocurrency is starting to turn south a little bit. So again, that might make for a very interesting Tuesday. But aside from that though, Wednesday is going to be one of the two big days for the week. So we have mortgage applications, mortgage market index, building permits, and housing starts. Later in the afternoon, we have FOMC minutes. And Wall Street is going to be really looking at how the members are oriented, because last FOMC minutes, market did not like it, and we kind of trended down quite significantly because of that. Because in general, the members were very inconsistent all over the place. So if we have a lot more orientation towards rate cuts, then the market might get a little bit hyped up. Because as I've mentioned, that's what the market always wants. It always wants to focus on the next big catalyst, and there really isn't that much in substantial trade talk. And if anything, there's just a lot more negative type of things kind of popping up. So market's going to be really looking at FOMC minutes as hopefully a glimmer of hope ultimately. So Wednesday, again, is going to be one of the big days. Thursday, we have initial jobless claims as well as a couple of Fed speakers. So depending on what they kind of mention, that could really, again, hype up the market a little bit. And then last but not least, on Friday, we have GDP and PCE. So Wednesday and Friday, those are going to be the big days. These are some of the companies putting out their earnings. In my opinion, the only big one that could really move the broader market, as what we've seen in the past, is Walmart. But of course, dependent on how a lot of these companies give like future guidance and top and bottom line and so forth, that could maybe move some individual sectors itself. But Walmart has that reach across the board. So we'll have to wait and see how that does come out. But aside from that though, there's not really that much in kind of news coming out associated to SoFi that's planned. So no fireside chats, no interviews or anything. So I think in reality, the next big catalyst for SoFi is them just putting out news about in regards to cryptocurrency or their inclusion in the S&P. And SoFi won't put out that news. That's not their kind of place. But that catalyst won't be up until I think it's the third week of March. So March the 20th. And if we kind of look at some of the options, some people are already starting to kind of hedge, assume that it's going to be above 25, 27-ish, between those ranges. So again, that's a pretty good return on investment. So we've always seen that type of hype. So every time there's one of those S&P inclusion type of events, SoFi just tends to kind of trend up a little bit. So let me know if you're already starting to kind of buy some call options for that, or do you think that is going to be just hype? What's your kind of general thoughts on that? But in my opinion, I think that's going to be kind of the next big catalyst for SoFi. Aside from that, looking at shorts, so 8.74% of the free float is being shorted, so that's what we're going into this upcoming week with. Works out to be 109.46 million shares overall being shorted. Shares on loan have dropped significantly, and so still technically there is some signs of naked shorting, but based on the price action that's been happening and this dropping kind of does signal that some kind of larger entities that were lending out shares did sell out. So again, this is why I like to look at a lot of the data behind the scenes, what's happening and so forth. DTC 2.19 days does signal that shorts are relatively overextended, but again, SoFi's average volume has been dropping. So this is where DTC is just technically the average volume in comparison to number of shares being shorted. So this is why this is kind of going up a little bit, but still nonetheless does signal that shorts are relatively overextended. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around 21 to 22 by the end of this week. So a little bit of a recovery is anticipated. Bears are assuming that it's going to be sub kind of 1850 to 19. So again, you kind of have a little bit more upside, but very much oriented towards more down. With it closing on Friday at 1961, it is trading between this S2 and this S3. So SoFi has been relatively volatile lately, and this is why we see some wider gaps between the fib levels. So 2033 is going to be the next strong target slash resistance, and 1744 is going to be that next strong support. As I mentioned, I think even when SoFi was at like 23-ish, 24, I was saying that potentially worst case scenario, we could be hitting kind of the mid-teens, and yeah, it's kind of heading towards there. So that 1744, if tested, really does need to hold. If not, you could be seeing a little bit of a free fall, unfortunately. But aside from that, looking at the actual chart itself going into this upcoming week, not going to sugarcoat it, doesn't look great. So it is below all the key pivotal moving averages that generally I like to look at. So the 10, 50, 100, and 200-day moving averages. Stochastic RSI is at 41, so a little bit on the kind of oversold neutral side. But if SoFi does break below that, let's say 1904 or so forth, then this is where, again, it most likely will be heading towards that 17. So for those of you that want a dollar cost average, just kind of watch for those support points. But again, we've seen SoFi really, and Anthony actually even said it perfectly well during the Tanner interview, like SoFi is trading at a crazy discount. So yes, it does feel like the world is ending, and it, especially if you got in at like 26 or even at the all-time highs, it might seem like the world is ending, but sometimes these are the best opportunities to buy. And looking back in April, which conveniently was the last other time we did break below that 200-day moving average, like that was an optimum time to buy because it had a low of 860 and it went crazy high. So again, don't be afraid to buy the dip, but no matter what, these videos aren't meant to get you to buy or sell, just interpreting the data. So you guys do whatever floats your boat. Let me know your thoughts on where things are going. In my opinion, I think in the first half of the week, it is going to be a little bit more negative, and hopefully Thursday, Friday, we start to see a little bit of recovery. GDP is going to be very much torn apart by Wall Street and looking for any flaw for that. So again, if GDP comes in a lot better than anticipated, and based on some comments that Trump has mentioned in the past, it should be pretty a-okay. And if so, then the market might kind of feel like this sell-off that has happened is unjustified. So let me know your thoughts on that. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.